I'm DaRon.
And I'm Roniel.
Before we start today's episode, I just want to point out an observation I made and was promptly corrected on. DaRon does not, in fact, sorry, DaRon. Roniel.
Say, dang, DaRon, you're speaking in third person?
Self-hatred here. I was going to get to me. That's coming up next, but I jumped the gun. Roniel does not, in fact, have a construction garbage bag behind him.
Yeah, this is very garbage. This is how much you know that I'm garbage.
It's a high quality garbage bag behind him.
Yeah.
Just like I don't work in a basement, I work in my dungeon downstairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has a nice dungeon down there where he keeps people down there. And
that's right.
And stuff like that.
That's right. Sometimes you hear this high-pitched squealing scream thing. You think that's my washer going, but it's really the screams of the people in the basement.
Yes.
Dungeon.
He smuggles people. You get it? He smuggles people. No. Only if he had a bigger beard.
Right. I didn't know I looked that good.
Oh yeah, you're too sexy for your shirt. But yeah, no, this is not a garbage bag, by the way. I'm really trying to deal with this light because DaRon told me that it would be good that I move over, and then I get over here, and then it looks like, as he called it, I'm washed out. And now I can't get back into my other area, so I could not have this sun and this garbage bag in the background, which, by the way, is not a garbage bag, but it may look like a garbage bag.
For the record, I was against his moving in front of the window and did say he would have a lighting problem as a direct result.
But he did stand behind me.
I did stand behind him.
Pause. Not in that way, but he had my back.
Okay? That's right.
Oh, by the way, if you guys like this little, I don't know what the hell this is. I think it's a disperse thing where disperse.
The diffusers.
Diffuser things. Like, this looks pretty cool, but you'll see this behind my cat. And also, again, it's your smart water. This will help you. I'm telling you guys, keep you hydrated, especially when you're dealing with clients and security. It's your smart water. Smart water. If you haven't already, you need to get us on the payroll.
It's so funny. Well, it's like Sun Tzu said, move like smart water.
Yeah. I'm telling you, guys need to stay hydrated through this, these times, man. Hydration and health is wealth.
Actually, that's true.
Yeah, like, health is wealth, and guys need to keep your body together, and keep your mind together as well. There's a lot of things going on, and we're not out of COVID yet. So
you don't want to be old and decrepit like me.
This comes from a man that got a 12-pack. Like, come on now. Do you know how many people that Not many. Okay. Not many people has a 12-pack going down. And I ain't talking about no beer. I'm talking about abs. Okay. Washboard. Boom. Straight down. Nothing. Like, come on. So you just don't believe him. Don't believe him, guys. He's not old. You may think he looks old, but he's not old. And then if you cut off that beard of his, he definitely looks like maybe a 14-year-old, 15-year-old.
Yeah, actually, that's true. I do keep it. Yeah, but then I'd have to stare at my chin, and I don't like my chin.
Hey, man, wait. So I can't remember, but I don't know. I think I seen you one time, and where it was like cut down, but I don't know if I seen you. I think maybe one time I think you had some things cut off. I can't remember, but it was a while ago. I think when I first met you, didn't you just have this? Didn't you had cut this? Like, on the side?
I had this gone, and it was just that.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, and I think one time you did something else, like you had cut it some way, and I was just like, who the hell is this guy?
Okay. See, this guy at the gym keeps... Well, it's weird. And then he keeps changing like his hair and his beard to be like mine. And so I kept changing it because it was weird. And then he changed it to this, and I just gave up.
Oh man, he's definitely trying to be you. You sure he's not stalking you?
Who
You know,
knows?
like
I gave up. I was like, that's weird, but stay away from me.
your wife better watch out. She better watch out.
That's right.
You got some man people over there. You got people they trying to copy you.
I guess
But
so.
hey, it's all good. But again, he's not as old as you guys think. He definitely is a guy that walks around with a 12-pack all day long, all year round. And you know, get with him if you are trying to get your body in the right shape and trying to get stronger. So it's definitely good at what he does.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
And kick-ass martial artist. We both do martial art, but he's definitely a kick-ass martial artist. So yeah, that's it.
Honestly, it's fun.
Oh yeah, it's fun, and you know, again, people need to learn how to protect themselves in these days as well. There's too many crazy things going on in the world. Every day I wake up, somebody's getting shot, killed, robbed, something. I mean, it's just getting worse. But you definitely need to learn how to protect yourself. So if you haven't already, definitely. You know, check out some martial arts. Check out his martial arts. Check out Resistance Labs, or you know, check out all these different things. There are different martial arts out here. Check them out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that just because you go and do it, it's going to kick ass and you're going to be just that. But I'm saying being able to have something to protect yourself is better than having nothing.
No matter what, you wind up carrying yourself in a different way. You look different, you act different, and you don't put yourself in the same situations that you would if you didn't train martial arts, if you hadn't trained martial arts. So even if you're never going to use it, I mean, it's great for your mind because it's physical exercise. It's great for your body, physical exercise, and it changes who you are. I've seen a lot of youth who start off and they're in a bad place. They do martial arts for a bit with a good instructor who's attentive and understands how to work with someone like that. I mean, they straighten right up. They're different. They're very different. They behave differently. They start talking differently. They're happier. It's martial arts is, when done right, absolutely, it's phenomenal. It's hard to beat.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially when you have a lot of anger, somebody that understands the dealing with things and problems in your life, and knowing that you can get yourself in a situation you don't want to be in, it teaches you how to be self-aware of things and knowing what you could do to somebody if you're really good at what you do and you really train hard. It teaches you how to just get out of those situations, because you could hurt somebody, they can hurt you, and you guys can both be in jail or dead or somewhere, you know. So martial art gives you that discipline that you don't have. Like most of the time, people don't have that self-discipline. Yeah, and it also helps you like get, if you are angry or you're having a bad day, you can go in there and let some of that steam off, and then when you get out of the gym, it's not there anymore. Like you're not worried about it. You've let that off. Like another thing for burnout, as we talked about on the last one, if you feel like you're getting burned out, you know, when you're break, go to the gym. Go to the gym, lift weights, go to the gym, go martial art, kick, punch some stuff, and have fun. Then come back, sit down at your desk, and figure out what you was going, and you'll be more insightful about the things that are going on than you would didn't do it.
Yes, you're exactly right, and that is scientifically proven, by the way. Scientifically proven. So
hey, this guy, before you get in there, this guy does it all the time.
I do. It's true. It's true. I walk around doing it. I do it. I'll take breaks really frequently when I'm working and I'm walking and I'm doing whatever it happens to be. I'm working hand techniques, I'm working kata, I'm doing whatever it happens, just constantly. It really, you thirst for it. It. So.
Yeah.
But all of that aside, I actually want to ask a question and see if we can't talk about what you think is the number one, and I mean number one, biggest, most common mistake when people are testing Internet of Things or IoT devices.
Not testing the hardware. like skipping the hardware totally and just going to software. Like a lot of the things you see in IoT, because there's no software without hardware and there's no hardware, and you can't skip hardware. You just cannot. A lot of the issues there are in the hardware. I'm not saying that you guys have to do a ton of different attacks. There's no way we're going to be able to execute a lot of attacks unless it's specifically a hardware test.
Yeah.
But when it comes to IoT, you have a broader amount of things that you have to test in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So you have mobile, you have web services, cloud services, web apps, you name it. And then you have to think about the hardware perspective and stuff like that, and the different protocols. And you got to add in the network assessment you're doing on those different protocols as well. So there's a lot and a broad, visity of everything. So my thing is, the number one thing people, in my opinion, do wrong is skip the hardware. No, we don't care about the hardware. There's nothing, especially if you're an application security team that's doing IoT. We don't care about the hardware. We're just going to do and focus on the software.
Yeah.
And then you miss the critical things that are in the hardware.
I agree. And I think a lot of that has to do with the modern OWASP effect.
Man, okay. OWASP, I love you guys. Thank you guys for trying.
I don't.
Yeah, he doesn't love you guys, but I love everybody who's trying to help push security further.
No, you're just fucking it up.
Yeah. Stop, please. It is horrible. Like, if you look at the top 10, it's baloney.
Yeah.
I was doing an assessment, I think, months and months ago, and I'm looking at it, trying to relate, since most jobs relate to the OWASP top 10. They love to see that. I'm trying to relate that, and you can't relate none of shit to that. I mean, it does not relate at all.
Yeah.
So please stop the shit. Like, no.
Yeah, they're missing everything.
Even when we're talking about web apps, any of that stuff, stop it. Thick clients. We don't even have an updated version of that.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. So they're missing a lot of things. OWASP, like, it's the Bible.
Yeah.
OWASP is the Bible of application security.
To people who don't know better, commercial environment seems to really like it. I don't know why. I know I always learned MITRE. And I will tell you, if, for example, MITRE just came out with their 2021 top hardware vulnerabilities, CWEs, and it's phenomenal and it makes sense, but they integrate the software and the hardware, which is what you see across the DoD, at least from my field of the DoD and what I see within the government. But the commercial world, why don't they never look at the hardware? They don't look at the firmware. They don't look at the operating system. I had to test the operating systems. We had to verify that, Green Hill Soft's Integrity RTOS did what it was supposed to do as part of this, and that the hardware, that was all custom, by the way, did what it was supposed to do and wasn't bleeding.
Yeah. I mean, but there's not a lot of people that have a lot of experience. Just because you take a hardware person that may have electrical or electronic engineering experience doesn't mean they understand the security ramifications in those, product. And just because you take a security person who thinks they have hardware experience, or they were doing that, doesn't mean they understand there's different vulnerabilities as well. So again, this is what DaRon had basically touched on before. And AppSec is hard because you have to have those broad amount of skills to be able to do this stuff. Otherwise, you won't be able to do it. You will only be able to especially when you specialize in one thing.
Right.
So you can't do IoT because you're only specializing in web apps. And nowadays, and especially when you're talking about getting paid more, being that person, that subject matter expert, you need to be able to do all of these things and understand how they work together in order to understand the issues and how they're bleeding or leaking or side channel attacks or glitches, and how you can stop or do anything or whatever it may be, because the same stuff relates to everything.
Right.
So even when it comes to cars use software. They use the same similar technologies. Maybe how you may interact with it maybe, but you're going to attack it a similar way.
Right.
So you have to understand all things and how they work together, that whole ecosystem.
Right. Well, and to your point, what do you think are some of the most commonly missed things when looking at trying to integrate that hardware perspective into it, especially from a radio, microwave, or what have you perspective?
I mean, like the common attacks that we're talking about.
Uh,
Like, I mean, okay, it could be anything, but let's say from a radio perspective, the common things people are missing, that could be. I've just had this discussion with somebody. They wasn't even thinking about. And even though it's still a little different, they wasn't thinking about that. They wasn't thinking about the software defined radios that people are using and like the cards or
yeah,
different technologies and how you can actually see that data. They don't even know how to. They don't even know the software they use to read the traffic and how the messages are going back and forth. Now they all are using some similar protocol. Now, with that being said, you're missing that whole aspect that they're using that because these things are not secure.
right,
Bluetooth has not been secure for how many years now?
right.
Okay. Um, so they're missing that communication. They're missing the different protocols that are being used with these different radio, or software defined, products. They're missing those different protocols. Like what are some of like MQ, Rabbit MQ? They use
Right.
that. Oh, the subscriber system. They're so vulnerable. Like you can sniff that and set up your own server and be sniffing and relaying traffic back and forth. They don't protect against those things. I mean, there are tons of different things that we're looking at, especially some of the leakages and side channel attacks that you see in some of these radio systems that they have nowadays that they don't protect. They leak so much data. Let's just a few years ago, it's still easy, but just a few years ago, it was easy to literally have your some RFID reader reading data coming from your car. As soon as you hit the transmitter, it transmits that data through.
Mhm.
You can read the data through, and it's not like it's encrypted. It's not like it's anything that you can just decrypt or decipher or anything. It's easily passed through. You get the message,
Right,
and they give you this code, and literally there's nothing to it. You
right,
get that code, replay the code, and
right.
now you can retransmit that and open the car.
Right. That's actually funny enough. Something I've talked about before is there seems to be this idea that vehicles are so secure. And I mentioned, no, I mean, you have auto jigglers, which are cheap. You can get a whole set of auto jigglers that will get you into most vehicles.
Yeah.
Most vehicles. And all you do is you insert the silly thing and jiggle like this as you turn the handle and it pops right open. But I also pointed out the bigger issue today isn't that. The bigger issue today is relays and jammers and things of that nature for garage door openers, for
Oh yeah.
devices that unlock vehicles, and being able to replay a lot of that. It's actually amazing, absolutely amazing how vulnerable they still are.
Yeah, they are. I mean, jamming is a big thing. It's almost like DDoS. Jamming attacks are easy, and especially thinking about somebody jamming your car. No matter what you do, jamming the signal. I mean, and then you also look at some of these things that I was touching base on is the protocol. The communication
Right,
protocols behind these are written in house. You can have a good protocol, and it then somebody will take that and reinvent on their own, and they don't understand that there's going when you do that, you're basically introducing new vulnerability.
right,
So a lot of these protocols like Zigbee and Z-Wave and all these different things that they have out there, they're vulnerable. They're always somebody's always reinventing the wheel, trying to write new protocols, and that is the biggest thing, especially in medical devices.
right,
You see them write new protocols for different shit all the time, and they don't understand the ramifications of those. So when we tested a whole bunch of different medical software and then some of the devices they use, like the protocol icon, which is um, you'll see a lot of issues there and how they interact in the communication, and they're a lot of data,
yeah,
and they don't know that. So that is a big issue when you're doing that and sniffing. Like I said, there's no security against sniffing when you're sniffing the radio packets.
right.
There's no encryption there. What was the new thing, Dan? This year, I think it was either last year or this year. The car the car industry was doing. They found a way where when you get the message, you didn't see the code. You had to have it was like a two-step,
Right.
where it was like, that's not even good. As we talk
No.
about, two-step is not great, but it was like a two-step to verify that you are the person you are in order to receive that code. So the message would come in. Once it's transmitted, then you'd have another message that you would need to be able to use to actually utilize that to verify that you are who you are before it actually transmitted back. And then you could open up your car door. So there was like a two-step, but there's a vulnerability in between that.
And there always is. I don't understand two-step. It's so bogus. Especially, Cineverse was completely, utterly compromised for 5 years and all of this data stolen. It makes no sense as a process. And like we talked before, everyone has it on their phone, and then their phone has SMS. It has MMS, of course, but it also has email, and it has all of these other applications tied to it. So if I compromise your phone, two-step is really useless because now I've compromised everything.
Well, speaking of that, we had this conversation, and we can go back into the IoT, but I was telling somebody the other day that the reason why I don't use ApplePay, Samsung Pay, and none of that. And they're like, oh, that's secure. I say, well, guess what? If I have your phone and your card is on your phone digitally, I have your information. Like, that is not secure at all. And I stress upon it that, I'm not saying Cash App is better, but I tell people, I don't like Cash App as much, but I would prefer to use Cash App without like having my card linked to it, but just use Cash App than use Apple Pay. I can have Cash App anywhere, and I don't use Cash App on my same phone. So I can have Cash App anywhere, but Apple Pay is on Apple products.
Right.
And if somebody gets my phone, it's digitally on my phone.
Right.
You're just handing the crooks your stuff. I don't understand.
And tied to that, and to that point, the way the iPhone works with, if you have a Macintosh computer, you can link the two together, which makes it even more empowering for me, the attacker, because I can attack your computer and get your phone, or I can attack your phone and get your computer.
Yeah, linking things together like they do is not, it's not great for anything you're trying to.
No.
And a lot of times they'll link together without permission.
Yes, that's exactly right.
People, like I said, I don't think people think about when you add extra things, you add other issues. And
yes,
you bring in too many things for attackers. Us, we love that. That gives us a more larger attack surface.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think that's a component to this that a lot of people forget when we talk Internet of Things and we talk connectivity. What we're really talking about is a security nightmare.
Yeah. It sounds great. It sounds lovely. It's maybe innovative to people, but it's a full-on blown nightmare, because you cannot, especially with the deadlines and the way they do things, this ecosystem of developing software and hardware, you cannot protect everything if you have a whole shit ton of stuff going on. Like, you have this whole ecosystem that has all type of stuff involved in it, and how are you going to be able to protect everything? There's going to be a problem in something. And mainly, people do not focus when it comes to hardware. They don't give two shits about how it is, long as it works.
Right.
We see the same thing in software, but hardware is worse.
Right.
They don't give two shits. They don't think about it.
For as magical as a lot of the software vulnerabilities are, I think because we've diverged so, and honestly become so specialist, that so many people in our industry can't even begin to think about that hardware. And you see it in computer science too. I see a lot of people who are coming out with computer science degrees who are not being taught sufficiently about the hardware and the importance, for example, of good, solid, tight code, which is why you get entire applications written in JavaScript, as if the back end should be written in JavaScript. Well, that's inane.
Yeah. I like I said, they don't think about it, and like you said, with the way they set these things up, they don't even think about it from that process and how things are running. And like I said, they don't even care that on the hardware, a lot of things are out of date. The
Right.
software that's run on there, and the things that, even in the firmware, things are
Right.
out of date. The whole thing is out of date, and you don't even think about that. And the vulnerabilities have been in there, or it's present, and you don't even know.
Right.
And somebody takes just one person to take a look at it, and then like the cameras. Oh my gosh. Okay, I have a camera system. I'm not going to say any names. And one day I'm just thinking, like, I really want to see what's going on. Like, what can I do with it? Literally, and anybody on this camera system can take ownership of everything. They could pawn the shit out of me if I just kept this together. I had just recently got a new camera, and I found out you could do so many things with that, and you don't even know that they have a web thing. And you find out if you read the code that they have a web service. Or you go to the web service, not secure. They threw that shit together. The mobile service is not secure. You can own that. You can own this, and anybody can, once they get in there, they take privilege. They can basically do some privacy, get into my system, see my camera, see everything, see what I'm doing, keep track of me. I mean, and you would never know.
Yeah.
And now that we're not even talking about just now going to hardware, take the camera apart. Do you have root access? If you look at the UART port, you plug into there, you have root access to the system.
Yeah, and that is hardware, and a lot of people, they would not think to do that because they've divorced themselves, and application security, unfortunately, is divorcing itself so hard from hardware, especially in the commercial world. And I cannot understand it. I understand it's cheaper. I understand it's easier if you're a commercial manufacturer, but there's no point in testing the software if you're not going to test the hardware. This is security is supposed to be holistic. It's supposed to be everything. If a vulnerability in one piece is a vulnerability in the whole thing.
Yeah, it is. And here's a great thing to talk about when it comes to the IoT perspective. I guess it's the shift of IoT going into AppSec. And I don't know how your thoughts is, and you can tell me your thoughts whether it should be an AppSec or another particular area. But mostly IoT has been in the network area or the red teaming area. And in my opinion, I argue that most of the network guys don't even know how software works. So how the hell could they do anything with hardware? Now, I'm not saying you have to have that knowledge of hardware in order to understand things, but it's not as in depth as some of the things you would think of unless you're doing some advanced attack. But you don't have to go in depth as some people may think. However, you have to have knowledge of software because hardware runs off software. Even if you're programming it using some assembly language, like programming motors and different things. Not saying it'll be that way. I don't know why there's some people that still do that, but there are better ways. But even if you're doing it in that way, you still have to understand how that works from that component. Even the operating system, all these hardware have operating system on it, have Linux or some form of some based operating system that somebody created, whatever. Because nowadays they're creating their own, but this shit is running off software. So in my perspective, I felt that IoT should be in AppSec because everything that's on in that ecosystem is software related and it's integrated with hardware. So you have to know both. And if you have a computer science degree, you already have that. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's true. I would have never. That's the difference between the commercial world and the government world. It doesn't make sense for it to have ever been in the network realm because the only thing I could think of as a basis for that is, Internet of Things and connectivity. But Internet of Things is all software based and hardware based, and networking security doesn't deal with either of that. They deal with networking concerns, which are completely separate. They deal with, how your network is configured and architected, routing, and whether or not you can hit networks you shouldn't be able to hit, and how traffic is traversing, and whether it's segmented and segregated and micro segments and all of that kind of stuff. And I think network security is going to find itself in a world of hurt very soon. as more and more networking components get virtualized.
Yeah, I mean, they're going into that software-defined network,
Mm-hmm.
and it's starting to be virtual. Like when you think about the things nowadays, a lot of the network stuff that we're starting to see is cloud-based.
Yes.
And AppSec, we're testing that. When I see network doing app guys, so even if you're an AppSec professional, you have to still have some basic in networking, and it doesn't have to be crazy, like at a higher level. You have to have some broad, idea of how things are networked or put together or connect together. So still, all of these things from that point of view should all be in AppSec. And that's why AppSec is starting to be one of the hardest fields, because you have to know everything,
Yeah.
and IoT encompasses everything. Everything that you may do on a day-to-day basis, all of that, you'll do all that in IoT.
Well, and I think just to add to that, what it's almost like network security is disappearing, almost like classical network administration is disappearing, just because it is virtualizing and you've got that hyper convergence, to use, techno babble. So as more of this stuff just gets, people say integrated, but the truth is it's not getting integrated. It's actually completely disappearing for a large portion of it and getting virtualized. So there's no integration. It's virtualized. It's fake now. It makes it so that I think they're struggling to find a reason for being, and I would argue what is happening is, so security split off into a million different pieces, and I believe it's starting to come back and converge again, just like IT split off, and it is coming right back together. Well, I think importantly, all of this stuff winds up being very interrelated. Even though we're virtualizing large portions of the networking side, one of the honestly most beautiful pieces to this is you're not going to virtualize, or you can only virtualize so much. And you're certainly not going to virtualize a lot of the little tiny components that make up, say, a mobile phone, or the software running on it, or these stupid smartwatches. I refuse to get one.
I have one. Lovely, by the way. Uh, it's cool. I literally just use it to check my messages. I don't use it for anything else. It's connected. I'm not using it for like the service. I just kind of like to see my text messages, and that's about it. And I'll get few things. So when you guys are going off, I literally can see it right there on my wrist. So other than that, I
Good.
don't have to pick up my phone. So, uh, but yeah, um, it's. I mean, like I said, I think it's great that we're getting all these nice little things that we already were behind from anyway. Like this is nothing new to Japan and
Right.
some place in the world. They've already been doing it. Shit, I think they even had touchscreens before we did. I mean, come on now. But again, it's all great, but again, people don't understand that they're pretty much just making the attack surface for attackers easier
Yeah.
and broader.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's more than one way I can hack you.
Yes. Yes. And neglecting that hardware side that's a critical mistake. A huge mistake. Absolutely
Yeah.
huge.
Well, knowing where you work, what you in your line of work, you ain't got. You neglect that. That's
Yeah, that's true.
that could be a bad day.
That is bad. That's very bad. That's
Yeah.
incredibly bad.
So yeah.
So
Yeah. So like I said, people need to in IoT. You can't neglect hardware.
I
You
agree.
have to do it. Even like I said, if you're not touching it from an advanced perspective, you still need to be looking at the firmware. You need to be looking at the operating system, the network protocols. You need to look at all of those different things, the Bluetooth, the radio communication, all these different things. Those are the basic things, essentials that you should be testing.
Yeah.
There are more, but you should be testing. And then if you have time, you can get into the more advanced things, where we're actually literally testing the hardware itself.
Right. Right.
But we're seeing if you can modify it and make it do what you want. But a lot of companies don't want. A lot of them don't even, because you got to think about it. It's $1 million. It could be $1 million thing, piece of software. I doubt it, but hardware. And a lot of people don't want you messing with it.
Yeah.
You know, companies send these different devices and they don't want you breaking stuff. So, you know, that's why I say even then, I just clients for the firmware dump already. So I don't have to try to dump it myself, which makes it easier because realistically, attacker is going to, they might go firmware on there or they're going to dump it off the hardware. But I asked them for that, so I don't have to. That way I can take a look at their file system. And if they have some type of way of interfacing with their operating system, because a lot of times they do have some remote, you know,
Right.
things or way you can get into that. So I'll ask them all those things before I try to take it. In some places they don't give a shit. Take it apart, whatever. But a lot of times you break certain things. So that's why I think people get to the fear, because they're like, oh, I don't even know shit about hardware. It's like, man, it's really easy. It's really easier than people think. It's like you're not desoldering and soldering shit back together or trying to figure out what a circuit. I mean, you will look at the specification if you're really looking at it to see what things are, but it's not like you're desoldering shit and then putting things back together or taking it apart. Like, you're not really doing that a lot of the times.
Yeah. Well, and the
Unless you're
diagrams are
DaRon.
easy. Yeah.
Unless you're DaRon.
Which
You know,
case?
then you're probably doing that shit.
Yeah.
But
yeah, splicing is important.
Yeah.
They're supposed to protect it, and if they don't protect against it, whose fault is it? Not mine.
I love, and most people don't have money to get oscilloscopes and stuff, and I have a few of them myself, and that's very important when you're trying to look at the signal and data going through. So I love using that to try to do things with the signals and stuff like that. Glitching, like, I love that. That's pretty fun.
Measuring the
Yep.
electricity that flows through, measuring the input, measuring the output, measuring the emissions that come off of whatever it happens to be it a chip, be it a processor. Yeah, all those
And
good
seeing
side
what
channels.
data.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see a lot of data going through there and then reading that. Seeing, you can use a logic analyzer, analyze that data, especially when you're looking at which I understand from being an engineering technician or tech. So using those UART ports and those different ports to be able to debug, but I think that at some point they should take that out.
I agree.
You know, or, you know, find some way to make sure that you can't read data off of that. Like, you know, even if they were soldering those things, but you could just desolder that. But literally, they should make sure that the bus lines are running through there does not transmit data, so you can read that. Or if you're going to use it, then make sure you have some lockdowns, controls on that, so they can't just log into your debug system. Yeah. So, but literally for a technician, people don't understand. If you're a technician and you're repairing shit, we use those debug ports to make sure that everything's working right and debug the hardware, especially, you know, but from testing them from, especially from our oscillator and different things. Right. So I can definitely hook those things up to my oscillator or see how things are working. Like you said, the power, mission, different things. So you're going to have to connect to the ground anyway. But a lot of people don't understand why we use those. And I used to use those a lot when I was trying to test things and repair them and stuff like that. So I just think that I don't think it's necessary for consumers. It's not like they're giving it back anyway. And if you get it back nowadays, nobody's probably going to look and repair it. They're probably going to just give you a new one.
Yeah, I think there are some instances where maybe you should care, say, for example, like an ADT home invasion system or any of that kind of stuff. But by and large, you're exactly right. If someone is soldering together and desoldering the components of your wristwatch, for example, you probably have bigger issues.
Yeah.
Especially if it's on your wrist.
Yeah. So it's not as hard as people think, but they should definitely take in consideration hardware. That is an important thing. It is a part of IoT. It cannot be taken out.
Yeah, I completely agree.
They go together.
Yep, they do.
Like, what's that one show? That Love in a Marriage thing. You remember that?
Yes, I do. I didn't
one
watch
without
it.
The other.
Right. Yeah. The horse and carriage.
Yeah. I used to love it when a guy would sit down there and talk to the puppet. on the couch. Like that was hilarious. Like this, I swear he was high off of something that he would sit down and talk to that puppet. Like maybe they were supposed to be a real dog, but the fact that the puppet would be talking to him, that was priceless.
Definitely needed to see someone about that. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap it up. I want to thank you for your time. I hope everyone enjoyed the discussion. I hope maybe it caused you to think about something that you might be missing, whether it's something that we discussed or whether it's something else, because there aren't enough hours in the day to catch it all. And it's always just a risk assessment. And just ask yourself, am I making the proper risk assessment when I'm deciding what I'm going to test, how I'm going to test it? And if the answer is yes, then great. If the answer is no, definitely adjust.
Yeah, definitely. Again, number one thing, test hardware.
Yeah.
All right. That's a key factor. Do not exclude hardware from the IoT.
Yeah.
That's our number one thing from this discussion. And there's a lot of variety of attack surface or it's attack surface area in hardware that you could be missing, especially in the firmware and different things and the operating system. So definitely add that into your plan if you guys have it in your IoT assessment scope. Add that in there if you can. And there's ways around it. So that's very, very important. Anyway, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe. It's very appreciated, much appreciated. And if you guys definitely want to hear different things or have new topics you want us to discuss, please add them down in the comment section. You can email us. You can badger DaRon. I mean, you can do whatever you want. Badger me all day. You can spam his email with content that you want. Don't really spam his email, but you can definitely let him know or let us know some of the things you want us to discuss. And even if you want to be on the podcast in the future, we're looking to get maybe some people on to discuss some things, the things they like. We had a few people reach out to us, so maybe we'll do that in the future. But anything you want us to talk about, please put it down in the comment section. Other than that, thank you guys for your time. I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
And see you on the next podcast.
Have fun.
Have a good one.